Okay, so we'll hand over to Raymond from Adelaide. Should you go to class?
Does anyone know how to make this like?
I guess control panel, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, let's try it. Oh, what?
You've got the microphone up.
I've got the. Is that working? The microphone's working. Yeah. Right. So yeah. Thanks, Michael. I realized I unintentionally made a sort of unnecessarily mysterious title. I could have included the second half so you actually know what it is about, but I don't know. I didn't think of that, and then I read all the other titles and I was like, I can tell what these talks are about. So yeah, sorry about that. I also sort of wish I wasn't going last, because this last session this afternoon has been really, really good, and I think probably all the results have undermined a lot of what I'm going to say here, maybe. So we'll see if it still makes sense by the end of it. So this is a joint work with some colleagues all from the University of Adelaide, Stuart Johnson, Adrian Koerber, and Johnny Tuke. So a lot of them were planning to come, but yeah, unfortunately, university mergers have it just has different plans. And that's why you can also see there's quite a lot of split personality stuff going on here. So I'm currently from the University of Adelaide. That's the university I'm from, that's this one. But in about 6 weeks, we become this one. And we drop the computer science. Those guys are going their own way. Best of luck to them. And a little nod to the future too. This color, by the way, is North Terrace purple. It's trademarked. It's the color of the new university, which supposedly it's supposed to be the color of the jacaranda flowers that are all along North Terrace, where the University of Adelaide campus is. But you know, I think actually, and I'm sure someone got paid a lot to come up with that idea. But I think maybe also that person hasn't seen the jacarandas at UQ. So I'm not sure we can really claim to. All right. So what was the idea here? We were interested in the following question, to put it simply. Okay. We want to know, our students are in principle doing lots of different things, right? In class. So we have one course, which I'll describe in a minute, and it has heaps of different components, you know, lectures and tutorials and assignments and blah, and this and that. And, you know, the students are doing them or not doing them, or they're coming or they're not coming. And, you know, we put a lot of effort into writing tutorial questions or preparing lectures or preparing videos or whatever. And, you know, I sort of feel like, well, what, if anything, that we're doing actually makes a difference? Or what makes the biggest difference? You know, if I had to make a new course, or 100 new courses in 18 months, and I could only do one thing, right? What should it be? That's sort of what I'd like to know. So we looked at data from one of our courses from last year, and we had data. I'll describe the data in a minute. So we had data from all the students, not all the students in the course. So there were maybe 600 or 700 in the course, but we had to cut out a few because of missing data for various reasons, similar to some of the talks we've seen earlier, actually. And we had data across all the things they could sort of possibly engage in with the course. And then we tried to look at what would be the best predictor of their outcome. Okay, so the course that we had, it was called Mathematics 1A. It's the first course that you would do at university, you know, if you come to you know, enter into an engineering degree or a mathematics degree or a physics degree, right? You would have to do this course. It's the first course. It's half algebra and half calculus. This is pretty common, I think, in Australia. And the way that it runs, well, if you go back 5 or 6 years, it would have been, and from 5 or 6 years ago to time immemorial, it would have been something like 4 lectures a week. And these are lectures where, you know, you come into a lecture theatre with hundreds of other people, and you sit there and the lecturer will write the stuff on the board and you write it down. And then you go away from the lecture and you do all your work. You know, you do your assignments and you practice your questions and you have a tutorial later in the week. I'm describing a normal maths course, right? You'll remember that from when you were a maths student, probably. Okay, But then we were sort of forced to modernize it, right? Because it had to go online. And then when it came off on being online in 21 or something, just the whole world had changed, right? We were never going to get in the lecture theatre 4 times a week to talk to the students again, ever. It's never going to happen. So what does happen now, so there is still a big online component. In fact, for a lot of students, that's all they do. So there are, and we have to be a little bit careful about what we're calling things here. So I'll try and describe them carefully. So these course videos are short. They're like, you might call them topic videos. You might call them mini lectures. They're like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 5 to 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer. And, you know, there might be, each week, there might be half a dozen for algebra, half a dozen for calculus, something like that, right? And they might total a few hours, actually, over the whole week. So it's your 4 hours of lectures, right? But chunked into smaller videos. That's the course material. There's also course notes that go with the course material, like a sort of textbook. So these are released each week on the LMS, which is Canvas for us. And the students are expected to watch them, right? But then additionally, we do have a lecture. Our lecture is not called a lecture. We're not allowed to do that. It's called a seminar, which is actually worse than lecture. But so this is a whole course, so a really big lecture theatre, like 550 seats. Everybody, so theoretically, everybody will come to it, right? And we'd be together for 1 hour and the lecturer would do stuff, right? They would seminar for an hour and the thing is recorded, right? And so then if you couldn't make it or whatever, you could watch it afterwards. So you can watch the recording of the seminar. And this recording here is different from these videos, right? They're different. So that's 1 hour that the students come to class. This is the other hour, which is a tutorial, but we're not allowed to call it tutorial. So it's called a workshop. And these are small group. This is a small group. So like, I mean, maybe not even this many, right? 20 to 30, something. You can definitely call 20 to 30 a small group. Yeah. Well, maybe small group is 5 to 6. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a classroom size, normal classroom size. And this is, you know, this is a whiteboard tutorial, which you might find in lots of universities. So it would be in a room like this, except with whiteboards instead of windows, right? And we would get into, you know, groups of 4 or 5 and work in groups on questions. So that's the kind of tutorial it is. So that's 1 hour that we spend with the students. That's 1 hour that we spend with the students. And then the rest of the week is yours, right? You go to pub or something. So that's all you get at the University of Adelaide. We definitely don't get 2-hour lecture and 2-hour workshop and another hour. Well, man, that's never happening. But I'm happy to say that that's increasing over this side. So we're actually going to get extra hours from next year onwards. So this will increase. Okay, so this is the stuff they do. And then, well, this is the stuff they sort of come to. These are the learning activities. And then the assessments are, there's quite a lot of assessments. So there's written assignments every week. They're fairly short, right? It's just like 1 algebra and 1 calculus question. So written assignments. There's online assignments. We use Mobius. I don't know if anyone here uses Mobius. Mobius is pretty dope. You can have randomized questions. It's the sort of thing where they can do it over and over and over and just resubmit it until they get full marks if they want. It's just practice. But it is worth marks, right, at the end. So they can keep doing it, but it is worth marks in their final. There are marks for the workshop participation. So this is effectively coming to the workshops and doing the work, right? 3 marks, basically, if you come along. And then there's a test and an exam. So the test and the exam are both secure. They're invigilated, right? So these 2 things total 75. So this is 60%. This is 15%. And then this stuff here, it's like 10 and 10 and 5, right? And I realized that I should be pointing with the mouse for the Zoom people. Apologies. In order, 10, 10, 5, 15, 60. Right. So that's a kind of summary of how this works. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Well, I'll just tell you a tiny bit about the test now. So the test is online, but it's in a computer room and someone's watching you, right? So you can't cheat on it. You can't use the internet or anything. It's not an unsupervised take-home thing. It's an invigilated test, but it is a very different format to the final exam. The final exam is a written exam. The test is on a computer using Mobius, right? Randomized, short, mostly multiple choice or enter a number or something, right? So quite a different format to the final exam. So one interesting question is, well, doing a written test for 600 or 700 students would probably not be feasible, right? So they kind of have we're kind of forced into this. But it is an interesting question as to whether or not, the test is a good representative. Is a good for the students, is a good sort of preparation for the exam. So that is an interesting question because it's such a different format. Okay, so what did we actually collect? What was the data that we collected? Okay, so we had written assignment marks and, of course, written assignment hand-in rates, just 1 or 0, did you hand it in? We had the same for Mobius, right? So the marks for the assignments, which are typically very high, but also just 0 or 1, did you hand it in? One thing I forgot to mention is this was our discussion board. So there's also a class discussion board. I'm not sure if anyone's used Piazza, but it's the one we use. It's quite good. So we had a lot of data from Piazza, which includes like how many views did the students have, how many days were they online throughout the semester, how many questions did they ask, how many questions did they answer, that sort of stuff. Right. So we had a lot of data from the discussion board, and this was 2024. This data came from the 2024 instance of this course. And so in 2024, there was quite a bit of discussion board use compared to, I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but in 25, total discussion board just crashed, right? I mean, almost no one's using it now. Yeah, so I think we might find something quite different if we just tried to do this again right now. Okay, so then we've got data from the lecture, well, it's a proxy for lecture attendance, right? During the lectures, we would have active learning stuff, right? Quizzes or polls, and we've got data about participation in those polls. So we don't have the data of, did you answer the poll question correctly? I actually don't really care about that. We're just really using it as a proxy for, did you come to the seminar and engage in the activities? That's what it is, right? So this is coming to the seminar. Did you view the seminar, or how many times did you view the recording of the seminar? Did you go to your workshop? We've got test marks, we've got the exam mark, right? And the exam mark is the first attempt at the primary. So if you missed the primary because you had a medical sup or something, we still count your grade. And then we've got the year 12 marks. So in South Australia, students do 2 maths courses in year 12. There are a few others, but the ones you need to get into university are mathematical methods and specialist mathematics. This is the sort of first maths course. I don't know. Intermediate. Whatever. Yeah. And this one is the on top maths course. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the sort of basic one, and this is the
Not basic.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. This is the normal one, and this is the more advanced one. Now, so there is a sort of national curriculum in Australia, so they do kind of match up. Yeah. So it's intermediate and advanced. Extended. Yeah. These are just the worst names.
That's A, B, and C.
Right. We used to call it Maths 1 and Maths 2. Yeah. Should be called less farm maths. So at the University of Adelaide, you needed both of these to get into engineering, right? It is a prerequisite for Maths 1A. So every student has both of these. Now, yeah, no, we were lucky. So at Adelaide University, that's not the case, right? So you don't need this one. From next year, you won't need this one. So if you want to come and do a maths degree at Adelaide Uni, a shitty maths degree, you totally can if you haven't done this now. Come along. Everyone's welcome. So yeah, this requirement is disappearing from next year, but for this course, every single person had this. Actually, some of the data that we were missing, it's not entirely true, because some of the data we were missing was data from this course, because it's not entirely true that you needed it. If you didn't have it, you could do it. another course, like Math Zero course, to get into this. So, but for the data that we're considering, all students had both of these. Okay, so here's a picture of how this data correlates. Don't worry too much about this. There's a lot of stuff here. I just like it because it looks like a mosaic. So along, it's symmetric, so you only have to look at one half of it. But along the top and the side, we've got every single piece of data that we had, and they're grouped. So you might not be able to see this, but the very top one is the test. The very bottom one is the exam. And then there's the written assignments, the Mobius assignments, the workshops, the seminar attendance polls, watching the videos, piazza engagement. And in here is school marked. That says methods and that says specialist. And they're colored by, by correlation, right? So dark blue is 1. You can see that along the diagonal, everything is perfectly correlated with itself. So that makes sense. But what we're really interested in, of course, the final mark, the best predictor of the final mark is the exam, because it's 60% of your final grade, right? So that's not the right question to ask. What we really want to ask is, what is the best predictor of your primary exam mark, right? Out of all of this stuff, can we predict your final exam mark based on everything else before you even sit it? And so you look for the darkest squares here, not this one, obviously. But the other dark squares you see, the darker the square, the bigger the correlation. So here, this is the biggest one, obviously. That's the test, which is actually pretty good, I think, because the test is halfway through the semester. It's not on everything, and it's not even a written test. So the fact that this is blue is actually not that obvious. And then there's 2 dark ones here. These ones correspond to school, right? And it's not clear what the next most important thing is, but you see there is some dark stuff here, right? So we want to look at this a little more carefully and see whether there actually is anything here. Here's another picture of the effect sizes of each of these grouped by what sort of type of thing they are. And you can see test is way over there. And then those 2 dots are school marks. And everything else is back here, but they're not sort of, they're not way down here. Some of them are still up there. So it's kind of worth investigating whether that is anything or not. If we group them as we have here by type of object and just look at the correlation again. So this is just it's like a block version of the last one. They're ordered differently, unfortunately. So the thing we're looking for now is this one, right? Or this, this one here, right? First attempt at primary. Again, you see year 12 and the test are the biggest, but then you can see more clearly that the assignments here, the written and online assignments, are having a bigger effect. So yeah, the question is really, I think it's clear from this that the test and your year 12 marks are already doing a pretty good job of telling us how you're going to go, right? So we wanted to think about that a little further. We looked at the specialist maths mark, okay? So we already know this is this is before you even start university. We know this number, okay? And we wanted to see, okay, could we control somehow for your mark to see how you were going to do? So this is just a linear model fitting the year 12 mark at the specialist maths mark and the first attempt at primary. You can see there's, so that's the line of best fit. Unfortunately, I didn't write the model down, but the numbers were sensible. By which I mean, Jono, who's a statistician, told me they were sensible numbers, and I believe him. I mean, it looks, yeah, that's right. They're very good at covering up lies. So, right. So you can see the data is still pretty spread out, right? And so then the question really became, well, okay, given that we know your year, I have 3 minutes. Given that we know your year 12 mark, what can we say? Can we say, what differentiates these people from the people above it, right? If we already know your year 12 mark, what are we doing in class that differentiates the people that are getting over what we expect and the people getting under what we expect? I think I know the answer to this now, actually. It's maths anxiety. That's what I think that's probably a prominent effect, but we don't have that data. So we're looking at from the components of the class, what was the most important thing. So we looked at the residuals. The red dashed line is if you were on the red dashed line, you did exactly as we would expect you to do, right? And the black dashed lines are the lines of best fit of the data. And you can see that so written assignments, it's all squished up here because the hand-in rates were pretty good over the semester. Same with Mobius. Most people did it, right? The thing that looks to me, when I look at these, I was pretty happy because I look at this one and I think this line is sloping up and the data looks kind of spread out, right? I looked at that and I thought maybe that means, that's the poll, by the way. That means, remember, that's coming to class and engaging in the active learning, right? I'm a big proponent of active learning in large lectures. It's like my thing, and I saw it and I was like, this is gonna mean that I have been right this whole time and that you should come to class and you should participate in the active learning and you will do better, right? It turns out statistics doesn't work that way. You can't just, so you have to fit a model or something. So we use Step AIC that sort of fits the best, smallest model that it can, and it's not in here, right? So actually, what you see here is that the written assignments, the workshops, and the discussion board are the sort of biggest effects, right? Not coming to class, not attempting your Mobius, although I will say more about that in a second. It's more that if you don't do the written assignments, you will do worse. It's not so much that you do them and then you do better, right? It's more a predictor of whether you're going to fail or not, rather than of whether you're going to succeed, if you see what I mean. So we decided to break it down by cohort meaning like fail, pass, credit, right? Grade, by grade. And actually this is interesting because I think you can start to see which things are separating out the different students, right? So when I look at, for example, the Mobius assignments and the written assignments, right? The fail group has been immediately identified, right? I mean, if you have not handed up, by the second assignment, if you haven't handed up, basically, you're in trouble. We can tell in week 2, we can tell you're in trouble, right? Whereas everything else is a little more, it's not, there's big dips in the middle, by the way, because that's where the class test was. It's sort of obvious what's happening there. But interestingly, some of them, like this one is coming to class and, you can see it, the HD and D students are the ones that are sort of, engaging more in that particular thing. Same thing here. This is watching the recordings of the lectures. So this is coming to the lectures, this is watching the lectures. And you can see it's separating out the higher achieving students from the other students. But notice that the scales are not the same, right? That says 10% at the top. So, not only are people not coming to class, they're not even watching the videos really. So I think what we learn here is, well, firstly, the mid-semester test is actually a really good thing. I maintain that even though it's a completely different sort of format, it's still a very good predictor of the final grade. Okay, we already knew that year 12, we suspected strongly that year 12 marks would be a good predictor, and they are, right? So maybe we didn't learn anything there, but we did confirm that we're not making any mistakes when we make that assumption. But this is interesting. So firstly, the discussion board, it does seem to have a small positive effect on your exam grade, on your final grade. Now, discussion board use is going down. So it's not clear what implications that is going to have. Maybe ChatGPT is better than talking to people. I don't know. But I guess I do know that this is probably never going to be a thing again. So I don't know what the implications of that are. But then this one here is also, I think is also pretty striking because this is data that we can collect. And in week 1, week 2, we can intervene. We can make an early intervention here, right? We can look at Mobius hand-in rates. We can look at written assignment hand-in rates. We can look at whether you're going to your workshop, right? We have that immediately to hand. And we know, well, from what we've seen, if this isn't going very well, then you're in trouble straight away. So yeah, I think that, I mean, there's a little bit more, there's quite a lot of data here. So there's still more that we're still looking at this. This is all kind of in progress, right? So we haven't concluded everything we could possibly conclude from this. So I would be very interested to hear if anyone has any suggestions or things they'd like to know. We can try and find them out. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm disappointed that I didn't find out that coming to class is important. I mean, I guess the answer is don't bother coming to class. Unless it's this class, this one. Come to this class, which is the point you made, right? You said we know going to the workshops is important. We do. We actually do now. Right, there you go. We've just solved an open problem from Andy's talk. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Raymond. I think one thing I would notice, like, there's a lot of correlations between the different types of things.
Yes.
So I will point out that STEP AIC, the way it works is that it would pick the most important out of a group of things.
Yes.
And so saying, like, I feel like that's why Piazza turned up as being a thing, is because it's quite different to the other things. Whereas the written assignments, the Mobius, and the mid-semester test are all kind of similar to each other. So the people who did well, like, tended to do well on one of those, did well on all of them. And that's why it picked the best one, which was like the written ones, I think. And then the same thing with the workshop. I mean, it's like, that was probably the most important thing they could have done, but it's...
Yes, I agree. I see what you mean. Yeah, so it's given us the sort of smallest model that's the best.
Like, yeah, you could see it in those correlation plots where there was like the blocks of things that were all related to each other. And what it's going to do is it's going to pick the best out of each block. That's how STEP ARC works.
Yes, so we did have
in a loose version.
We had a sort of larger model that did exactly that.
Yeah.
And so that's when we started looking at specifically the residuals and the engagement.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's good. We're talking about things, but yes. Next person.
Thanks for the interesting talk. There's a paper published in 2017 on attendance and performance, which used exact attendance data. And it showed clearly that attendance is primary for actually students who come with very moderate high school performance results tend to do very well if they actually attend, compared to those who come in very good grades from high school and then relax off and don't come to class. It's a very big difference there.
Yeah.
2017, I think, I published it with my colleagues. So
I think that, yeah, so the attendance data is not that easy for us to collect. It is for these classes.
So I had them scan the cards and came lecture.
Yes, yeah.
And it was a nightmare because security wouldn't release the data to me. I had to argue for a while to get it off them, but I got it in the end. And this was without ethics approval at their stage. Now I can't do it at all.
Yes, yeah, right. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
I feel your pain with the layout of the course because I've had to deal with the same thing of having the pre-recorded lectures and everything. Do you teach the workshops as well?
So there are many workshops. So there might be like 30 or something throughout the week, and they're done usually by a team of tutors.
Okay.
So the lecturer will do one.
Okay.
And then tutors will do the rest.
So as the lecturer, we've had to do some of those as well, and it's interesting finding the students that won't watch the pre-recorded videos, and then we'll come along to the seminar, and we'll say, "I haven't watched the videos. Can you teach me the content now?" And then you go to the workshop, and you see a student that hasn't watched the videos, hasn't watched the seminar, and says, "I'm at the workshop. Teach me the content now."
Yeah.
And so it's like the students are wanting the in-person stuff, but not wanting it as well. Like whenever you ask the students, they always say, yes, pre-recorded stuff. We love pre-recorded stuff because we can watch it on our time.
Whenever they want.
And then they don't engage with it. Like your videos are 10%. I've had similar things. I had a unit that I looked at the video data and it was like 90% of students watched less than 5% of the videos. And it was like, how can you hope to pass the content if you haven't watched any of it? So I'm kind of wondering, does your data allow for checking that? Like, can you correlate students that haven't watched the videos with ones that have come to the workshop and see how that affects it, and whether you've got like a better result for students that do watch the videos, do come to the seminar, and do come to the workshop? So you can kind of see like a compounding effect of actually engaging with the unit as opposed to minimal engagement with the actual unit.
Yeah, good question. So it could well be that the students that we're seeing do any of those things are doing all of them, right? And it's a small number, or it could be spread out and they're doing what they want. In principle, we do have that data. So we could in principle.
Yeah, it's hard to analyze. Like, I've tried doing it, and it's a lot to try and match everything up.
Yeah.
One positive note is that I did manage to convince our school to go back to in-person lectures for one of our units. And the student survey came out at the end of the semester, and one student wrote like a 2-paragraph thing saying, "This is my only unit with in-person lectures." And I feel like I actually learned something for the first time in my degree because I was able to be in a room with someone teaching me. So hopefully when you go to Adelaide University and you have these in-person lectures again, you'll have a positive experience again.
Thanks, Ray. Great talk. I was just wondering, I think one interesting question could be, especially with the change when you move to Adelaide University, is to look at those students that have only come in with math methods and then have had to do presumably some introductory course at university, and sort of see how they go compared to the ones that come in with both math methods and specialist maths.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Controlling for the math methods mark or something. I think that would be a really interesting thing.
Yeah. So the situation from next year will be that it'll be totally different. So we'll have a course called Calculus 1 and a course called Calculus 2. And Calculus 1 shouldn't be called that. It should be called Specialist Mathematics. And so looking at the Calc 2 students that went through Calc 1 and didn't, which ones? I mean, this is actually is something that I thought quite a bit about, because if our Calculus 1 course is too good, it will disadvantage the students that did specialist maths at school. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that thought. Like, because I'm teaching Calc 1 next year. So am I supposed to do a sort of middling job so that I don't teach them too goodly? I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm thinking too hard about it.
We have a couple of high school students that managed to do one course in there at the end of their high school. Like, they do 1 year.
Yes, we have, yeah. And just doing Calc 1 instead. Yeah, maybe.
I don't think.
No, probably not. Yeah.
The difference between specialist math students and math method students, I think, can be quite big.
Yes.
As a general. And that difference might sometimes be displayed in sophistication. I'm not sure that an introductory maths course necessarily.
No, in fact, I've been thinking a lot about rigor in that course, actually. So today in particular, I've been thinking about that. And I'm not sure that it's the right place for any rigor at all now. So, yeah.
I just wanted to find out. So, I mean, from what you're saying, the workshops in particular are functioning quite well in terms of predictors, apart from the Russian and the test and everything. I think having taught classes that have, should we say, the traditional lecture, and then either have a tutorial or they have a computer lab or something around. If you're doing steps, it's generally a computer lab. There is a tendency now, and I think particularly after COVID, for what I would consider just-in-time teaching. So they're not showing up at the lectures, but they're showing up at the labs or the tutorials because, I'm only going to make one entry a week. I'm literally going to only make the effort to go to one thing a week, and they expect everything to be taught in that one session. And that that second session with the, workshop, tutorial, whatever you want to call it, tends to be a bit smaller, maybe than if you've got big classes, it's been divided up into smaller ones, so therefore they can have a bit more attention. And therefore it's catching them in that just in time place, particularly if there are assessments associated with it.
Yeah, it is interesting. And if you had to tell a student if they had to do one thing, what should they do? I guess you'd tell them to do the workshop.
Tell them to come to the computer lab, you know.
But
Some students, the whole travel thing, I mean, I don't know how about you guys, but it is becoming an issue with students, you know, when they're at high school, the high schools are close to where they live. When they go off to university, there is a distance, and that distance seems to be getting greater each year because the cities are spreading. And so you've got one sort of coming from what we would call almost satellite, you know, areas into them. So they're showing up once a week for something.
Yeah, so thinking about this makes me really nervous because I would love to say, if you want to do this program at university, come to friggin' class, right? Just do it. Come to class. I don't want to hear your sob stories. You come to class and I will teach you. Okay, but wait, guys. Okay, so that's what I want. That's what I feel like. Okay, but then you know, there's this nagging equity issue, right? And it's just so stark that I feel like we'll never be able to tell students they should come to class anymore. And I don't know what the right, you know, I don't know what the answer to that.
You know, this semester going to class, you know, it's just, he hasn't, you know, effort of actually getting there is just too much.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
So that's looking at, so from a teaching point of view and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very challenging.
Our VC earns $1.3 million. You know, I think, in fact, we've got two VCs. So together they're earning $2.5 million. You know, they should be worrying about this, right? Not me. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it makes me angry. I don't know.
I mean, you've got it here for early, but what, you know, you've got this mobius handwritten, you know, written hand-in rates and everything. What interventions, you know, practically do you put in place to try and say scoop up those students?
Yeah, good question. So I claimed that we could intervene early, right? But did or do we do anything? Yeah. So actually, our university does have some scheme where we provide them names and they supposedly call up the students and make them, you know, ask them if they're doing their work or something. I don't know the details of that scheme, but they are supposedly running something like that. And we do provide them names. So yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you could. Yes.
That way, but you know, and the amount of students that got back to me going, I'm so glad, thank you so much for caring enough to get in touch. It made some difference.
Yeah.
It's like, it made a difference more than I thought it would.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think these are important. I think these kinds of interventions are important. I think that's,
you know, their student email, their personal email, text messages, or is it just anything to try and get hold of them?
yeah, just maybe we should get the Trumpet of Patriots guy to just start.
Thank you so much for caring and the rest of it. Sometimes it does make a really, it can make a very big difference in often what a vulnerable student's lives.
Do affect some students, especially they feel the obligation to come to the class when you send them a personal email.
Yeah, no, I've had the same experience.
Empathetic attitude. Sometimes then that makes them feel obliged and they do start attending classes or at least communicating to you. That's my personal experience. I do use mail merger as to send the personal email to the personal email IDs.
Well, you have to be careful about the nature of the way you word it, right? Yeah.
It's assignment, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, so
Could be the opening phrase that you missed the assessment, are you okay?
Yeah, exactly.
But in this,
Like you say, using us as the are you okay, just to try and, get that hook in there and see if we can get them responding.
yeah, I mean, the scheme that we have is run by the faculty or run by centrally somehow. And I don't know what they do. I don't know what they tell the students, right? But I think they even phone them. They try and phone them up. I don't know how successful. Yeah.
And even us with the if there's a number that we, the person's name doesn't pop up, we know who it is. We go, well, answer it. Not, because it just, there is this, remember before when we had the old landlines, we just pick up the phone and say hello. But now, no. They don't do the same. They will ignore ones that they don't know. They're fearful. They're actually genuinely fearful now.
We are going to differentiate how do we contact students?
I think that's what's tricky. We just had a session on nudging last week, and there's evidence that says it works, but only for very small groups. And now there's evidence saying we're actually nudging some people away because they know their inbox is going to be filled with us saying, "You're not coming to class. What are you doing?" And they go, "Oh, shut down. I never open that inbox again." So I do it. Don't worry. I'm not sold on it yet. But I'm not sure I'm doing the best.
Yeah, we can't
at least half.
lab them with them now. That one really does try
And you send them quick text day before the test on a particular day. Just a reminder from the text. Maybe they have missed the class before the test. So I wanted, instead of later on figuring out now how do I help them to pass the course or pick the less material. So I rather send them a text reminding them.
I think that's what's interesting though, because the evidence.
We have been texting from Teams. We can text students using Teams. We are not using our personal phones or credits. You can send me text in bulk. You can create that text list once, and you can use that to just send bulk text to everyone. Just sending a reminder, gentle reminder. Like sometimes worded like this invitation. Come and attend the class. I'm teaching so and so topic. Just a brief text. It's better to learn it in class. This is a harder topic, challenging topic. Just along the lines. So trying to encourage more response on attendance.
I think that's the interesting thing though, that nudging seems to work very well for a simple task that we do. If you nudge just before it's due and got a really good response.
That's right.
I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So they haven't, when we've got to the point that they've actually failed it, then there tends to be the shutdown.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're giving them the possibility of having, that you're going to pass something, then there's a fun.
Well, it's like, you've got 2 hours to click this button. You haven't clicked the button, can you please click it? And it works really well.
Yeah.
And we're against getting extrapolated to nudge for everything.
Yeah.
When if you've had 3 weeks to do a task and it's 24 hours to go, I can't nudge them to start that. We're done. What was the question on it? We should have gone to our next page. Yes.
Yes.
I have a paper that is about
Start an interesting discussion.
on statistics course in second year, where we did exactly this sort of analysis. And like we finally got it published like middle of the week, so I finally got around to it. Like that was from like 2021, but like didn't get around to publishing.
Yeah, right. So did you guys
in the proceedings for Merga?
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, thanks. Oh,
Anyway, we did like cluster analysis along. We did this sort of stuff. We also did cluster analysis. And things. Sort of similar stuff like Tanya was talking about Caitlin and stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, because we were trying to work out like which things in a flipped learning class are the best way to spend our time.
Yep. Yeah, no, this is exactly the question. Interesting. So did you guys find like vastly different stuff?
Yeah, I mean, basically there was like, there's different groups of students, right? So there was some students who did everything.
Yes.
Like they were highly engaged, they did really well. And then there was some students who watched a lot of, watched a lot of the videos, like rewatched the videos. Like they would kind of watch things and then rewatch them. And